If you've ever worked with data, you know this feeling all too well. A brand new project lands on your desk, and bam, you're staring at a massive, totally unfamiliar data set. You know, the first big hurdle isn't even the analysis or building some cool model. Nope, it's just figuring out what on earth you're even looking at.
Right? It's a universal pain point for anyone in this field. You crack open that file and you see thousands, maybe millions of rows, columns with names that make no sense, and you just know you're at the bottom of a very big hill. This first step, what we call Exploratory Data Analysis, or EDA, is absolutely crucial. But man, doing it from scratch can feel like such a slog before the real fun begins.
And that leads us right into the old way of doing things, what I like to call the data exploration grind. It's manual, it's repetitive, and it's so time-consuming. Every data person out there knows exactly what I'm talking about. So, this should look pretty familiar. This is the classic manual checklist. The first couple of tasks, they feel pretty good, right? A little df.describe here, a quick check for nulls there. You're making progress. It only takes a few minutes. But then, you hit the visualization wall. Suddenly, you're writing these tedious for loops, trying to plot every single variable one by one with matplotlib or seaborn. And this, right here, is where your minutes just bleed into hours of pure, mind-numbing, repetitive coding.
But what if we could reframe that grind? Instead of thinking of it as a chore, let's think of it as something essential. A process that has a formal name that really gives it the importance it deserves.
And that name is data profiling.
So what is it?
Well, it's the systematic process of really getting to know your data. You're looking at its structure, its quality, its content. You're basically creating a detailed summary, like a cheat sheet, that tells you the story of your data before you try to build anything with it. You know, I absolutely love this quote from Kirkborn. Thinking of data profiling as a first date with your data, it's just the perfect analogy. You're not trying to marry it on the spot. You're just getting acquainted. You're checking for any major red flags, seeing if you're compatible, and figuring out if there's any potential here. It's all about dedicating that initial time to just get to know it. Okay, so if the manual way is like a long, drawn-out date where you have to ask every single question yourself, the alternative is like getting a perfect personality summary delivered to you before you even walk in the door. And in the world of Python, that's not some fantasy. It's a very real automated superpower.
So let me introduce you to Why Data Profiling. Now, you might have known this by its old name, Pandas Profiling. It's a Python library that has one single beautiful purpose: to automate that entire exploratory grind and spit out a gorgeous, detailed, interactive report for you.
And this is where it gets incredible. Remember all those hours of work we just talked about? They get boiled down to this: 3 simple steps. You import the library, you load your data just like you always do with Pandas, and then you call one single function, profile report. That's it. That's the whole thing. And here it is in the wild. This is a real screenshot showing you just how simple it is. You take your standard messy CSV file, you run that one little command, and in seconds, poof, you get a full-blown interactive HTML report. No more fighting with loops, no wrestling with plot settings, just instant, actionable insight. All right, so what's actually in this magic report? Let's pop the hood and take a quick tour of what you get right out of the box. So first up, you get this amazing bird's eye view. This is your dataset's vital signs. It tells you the basics: how many rows, how many columns, how much memory it's using. But more importantly, it flags things like missing values, duplicate rows, and my favorite part, these high-level warnings that give you an immediate heads up about potential problems, like a column with way too many zeros. Now, from that big picture, the report dives deep. For every single variable in your data set, it does all the heavy lifting. It generates histograms, frequency counts, key stats. I mean, this is the exact stuff that used to take us hours of manual plotting. Now, it's just done, instantly. Of course, knowing how your variables relate to each other is huge. And the report nails this with interactive correlation heat maps. What's really cool is that you can toggle between different types of correlation, like Pearson for those straight-line relationships and Spearman for the more complex, non-linear ones. This is a game changer for spotting connections you might have otherwise missed.
You know, dealing with missing data is a classic headache. This tool doesn't just tell you how many values are missing, it shows you where they're missing. These nullity matrices and heat maps are so powerful because they can reveal hidden patterns. Like, hey, are all my missing values concentrated in the same few rows? That's a critical clue for figuring out your next move. And finally, just to keep everything in context, the report gives you a quick peek at the raw data itself, showing the first and last few rows. It's a small thing, but it's so thoughtful. It saves you from having to flip back and forth to your notebook just to remember what the data actually looks like.
So the report is obviously super impressive, but a tool is only as good as the problems it can solve, right? So let's look at how people are actually using this out in the wild to make a real difference.
I thought this quote from a Reddit user was a perfect real-world example. They're using data profiling for automated quality control. See, their team makes updates to these Power BI datasets, and they have historical data that should never change. So by running a profile report before and after changes, they can instantly catch if something that was supposed to be static, well, wasn't. It's a brilliant, simple safety.
Here's another massive use case: data migration. Think about moving data from some old, clunky legacy system to a shiny new one. That's a high-stakes operation. Data profiling is critical here. It helps you understand all the weird quirks and inconsistencies in the old data so you can build the right rules to clean it up for the new system. It seriously reduces the risk of a messy, bug-filled migration.
Okay, so to really get the most out of this, you gotta be smart about it. Here are a few pro tips. If you're dealing with a gigantic data set, just run the report on a sample first. It'll be much faster. And before you share that report with anyone, please think about security and scrub any sensitive info. But most importantly, don't let the report be the final word. Use it to start a conversation with the people who know the data best. And for the real power move, automate it. Version your reports over time to track how your data's health is changing. So in the end, we've seen how one simple tool can literally turn hours of that manual grind into just seconds of automated insight. It completely changes that first date with your data. And that leaves us with a really exciting question to think about. If you can automate this first, tedious step, you're freeing up your most valuable asset, your time, to tackle the much harder, more interesting problems. So what other part of your workflow is just waiting to be supercharged?